The Jack Welch Management Institute at Strayer University helps you go from, I know the way, to I've arrived with our top 10 ranked online MBA. Gain skills you can learn today and apply tomorrow. Get ready to go from make it happen to made it happen and keep striving. Visit strayer.edu/Jack Welch MBA to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
Your backyard barbecue has some new RSVPs. Just tap Target. With the grill raring to go, your personal shopper is tackling your same-day delivery order at Target.
Babe, so Bob and Lynn are bringing the kids after all.
Pro tip, you can change your same-day order with a quick text to your shopper.
I'll have her add popsicles. Ooh, and some sidewalk chalk.
Your shopper texts a thumbs up. You text 5 exclamation points and life is good. Text with a personal shopper and get it all delivered ASAP. Just tap Target.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Checking off the boxes on your to-do list is a great feeling. And when it comes to checking off coverage, a State Farm agent can help you choose an option that's right for you. Whether you prefer talking in person, on the phone, or using the award-winning app, it's nice knowing you have help finding coverage that best fits your needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
If Chelsea were behaving like that, the media would paint it and say, well, they're just being street smart, they're just being savvy. When Forest try those tactics, you know, we're football terrorists.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. And hasn't the summer gone quickly? So in amongst all the Europa League nonsense, the under-21 championships, the women's Euros and the usual transfer speculation, this summer has gone at exceptional pace. And in today's podcast, we're going to review a little bit of that and look forward to the season ahead, which starts in just a few days' time. So in today's podcast, we're going to have some of our regular features, the Wheel of Misfortune. Which Forest-related topic will we be discussing today? We're going to have 1 hot minute looking at Forest's key signings so far. And there's even more to come. I am your host, Rich Ferraro, and for the first time in the 2025-26 season, welcome to Football Terrorists.
Football terrorists.
So let's welcome today's panel, and I'm going to ask you, in a word, what's your prediction for what position Forest will finish this season? So I'm going to start with you, Tom Newton.
Morning. I'm going to go with 10th. I think we're going to get some more signings in by the end of the window, and we're going to navigate the European scheduling and everything. So I think 10th is where we'll finish this season.
Okie doke. Over to you, Baz.
Also 10th. I would also have us down to win the Conference League if we're in that. I don't know about the Europa League, but 10th, it's going to take it out of us being in Europe as well.
Okie doke. We will obviously return to the topic of Europe in a little while. And last but not least, the Maradona of the Midlands.
Yo, I'll say 12th.
Ooh.
Yeah, similar reasons, but I mean, I think 12th would still be a very good season, really, from where we've come from. Even last season, beginning of last season, we would have taken 12th with relish. So I'd say 12th is with a good European run, be a great season.
Well, yeah, okay. I am also, and genuinely, listener, I had planned this before Tom and Baz. I was going to go for 10th as well. And in fact, if you look at the Guardian's season previews, the fan previews, you will find written evidence that I had submitted that before today's podcast. Okay. And if you are new to 1865, then welcome. And of course, if you are a regular listener, then welcome back. So if you are new here, 1865 was first established by Baz and me back in 2008, when Forest had first been promoted back to the Championship. Obviously, we never imagined it would take so long for the Reds to get back to the Premier League. But aside from a Fawaz-related break, we've been with you almost every step of the way. Now, our bread and butter is a report on every single men's first team match, whether in the Premier League, the domestic cups, or Europe, whichever competition we're in. And this is part 1 of our 3-part season preview for 25-26. And during this campaign, we've got a range of shows planned for you. So, football terrorists, you're listening to it. This is our monthly show in which we review the Reds' progress, include some interviews with a few people who have interesting things to say, have a few laughs along the way, but interspersed with what we hope is some intelligent debate as well. We're also going to have the 1865 Women's Show, hosted by season ticket holder Adam and our new presenter Matt. This will provide regular updates on Forest's first season as a full-time professional team as they take on a new challenge in the WSL Championship. New for this season, we're going to bring you Yates's Espresso Bar. This is our weekly roundup covering the latest news and views, bulletins from our newshound Jamie, and a humorous look at the latest events from the City Ground. And just to add in there that last season we brought you over 100 podcasts, not only including some of the above, but also special shows celebrating 30 years since the Reds last qualified for Europe, a history of Forest kits in the post-European era, and interviews featuring Reds legends Mark Crosley, Nigel Clough and David Phillips, amongst others. Now, let's start with a Football Terrorist's regular feature, which is the Wheel of Misfortune. Now, I'm going to spin the wheel and it's going to bring up a topic, and then our panelists will have 30 seconds to share their views. They don't know what the topic is until I actually spin that wheel. So, I will give points for the best responses, and at the end of today's show, the panelist who gets the most points from today's games will get to choose a song of their choice as our closing music. So let's spin that wheel. And the topic that has come up is, would you rather be in the Europa League or the Conference League? And I am going to come to you first of all, Maradona of the Midlands, and your 30 seconds starts now.
Well, I think the answer is obvious. I'd much rather be in the Europa League. It's a much more high caliber set of teams we'll go against, much more glamorous ties, and much more accessible for the fans to get to as well, and players and teams we've actually heard of. And carrot at the end of the stick is a Champions League place if you win it. So why wouldn't we want to be in the Europa League? Bong.
Bong indeed. Okay, next I'm going to come to you, Baz, and your 30 seconds start now.
Well, as I said earlier, I think we could probably win the Conference League pretty easily because it's half of it seems to be club teams. But it has to be said, like, we have suffered this summer because we didn't make it to the Champions League. So it's important for us to get as high as possible, to aim as high as possible. And that means the Europa League is the place to be. And as Maradona says, we get Champions League at the end of it if we win.
Bong. Okie doke. And last but not least, I'm going to come to you, Tom, and your time starts now.
Pretty much the same as the other two. I'm really looking forward to the Europa League if we get into the Europa League. It's more prestigious and better teams in it, and there's about a £25 million difference, so it might give us the opportunity to get better players and probably stay in the top 10 finish in the Premier League. So if we stay in the Europa League, it's win-win for me, but we'll find out tomorrow, won't we?
And I think, on those topics, what I'd also like to say is that, Baz, you raised a really important point. We have suffered this summer, haven't we? If we were in the Champions League, then there's a chance we could have kept Elanga. There's a chance that other players would have signed for us. The Morgan Gibbs-White saga may not have emerged at all in the first place. So, it just shows status is important in modern football, doesn't it, Baz?
Yeah, last season I was saying, yeah, I'd much rather win the FA Cup than be in the Champions League. But winning the FA Cup would have helped us as well this summer, just because of the status that would have given us. So to lose out on both of them, I think, yeah, the whole Morgan Gibbs White thing would never have happened if we got either of those. And yeah, you could see the likes of Bakayoko just saying, "Yep, I'm coming straight away if we were in the Champions League."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably made our lives a bit harder.
And Maradona, you have predicted us to finish, I hate to say it, in the bottom half of the Premier League. Which do you think that if we were playing in the Conference League, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because the opposition would be of a lower level, but the journeys would be to the back end and of beyond, wouldn't they? Which would be much more tiring. So, do you think that finishing bottom half would be a price worth paying if we were in a position to be able to win a European competition?
Yeah, I mean, we saw what Tottenham and Manchester United did last season. I mean, they did to extreme levels. They completely sacrificed their league performance to prioritise the Europa League because of that Champions League place. So, I mean, I hope we can do it without doing that, because I don't want to finish 16th or 17th again. But it's bound to have an effect. Either competition we're in is going to have an effect. So we don't have that massive squad like Chelsea had, where they could just basically put in 11 players, which still cost, I don't know, £500 million for the Europa League, and then switch it around completely for the league game on the Sunday. Most of our matches will be played with the core of our first team being involved. So that, I think that's bound to have an effect. It affected teams with much greater resources than us in Spurs and Man U last season. But that carrot at the end of the Champions League place is so tantalising and such a big reward that you sort of have to sacrifice your league form. But I think that means we have to have a really good start to the Premier League season, build up a bank of points there before the European adventure begins, so we can fall back on it when the form inevitably will fall off during the season.
Now, Tom, just to kind of give a slight preview of part 2 of our season, pre-season podcasting, you have had a chat with some of our podcasting colleagues, a bit of a cross-podcast collaboration with Greg from Talking Reds and also Reese from Red Side of the Trent. And one of the things that did come up in the podcast there is that whole idea about, is it that whole thing about going to the back of beyond and all of that. Now, as somebody who goes to quite a lot of away matches generally, and I'm sure that parental duties notwithstanding, you will be also planning to go to a few European nights. Which is more exciting to you, the idea of going somewhere really new and exciting, somewhere up a mountain in Bosnia, as you say, or going somewhere where actually there's, it's an established ground, but there's a chance that we might get tanked?
It's a bit of both, really. I'd just like us to be really competitive, and you mentioned about we could go somewhere like AS Roma, for example, because Brighton went there a few years ago, and at the time they were in really good form under Roberto De Zerbi and get absolutely tonked out in Rome, kind of thing. So it's one of them, but I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is, because I was too young to enjoy the 95-96 UEFA Cup campaign. So I'm just going to enjoy it. And the thing is, though, if we do get tonked, just look back a few years ago under Fawaz. These European nights may never have happened under his, they definitely wouldn't have happened under his ownership. So Mr. Marinakis, which we're going to speak about in a bit, he's propelled this club into the European places, and yeah, I'm just going to enjoy it. And I like us to be competitive, but it's not the end, is it? If we don't progress in Europa's into the knockout stages.
Baz?
Yeah, as someone who's old, I do remember the 95-90, the European campaign, the UEFA Cup campaign, and we got absolutely, on paper, hammered by Bayern Munich 5-1. But I can still remember that day. It's one of the best games I've ever seen, the best atmospheres, and actually, we played amazingly well. We played so well. And I can remember I drove back to my house in Leeds. It was on the telly as well. So a load of my friends had stayed up waiting for me to come home, having watched the game. And someone came up to me and gave me a big hug saying, I'm so sorry. And I was like, what do you mean? That was one of the greatest games I've ever seen. So even getting tanked, it doesn't actually matter. The European nights are just special.
And as Mark Crosley said in the interview with him, it's like the main problem was just we couldn't score when we were in the ascendant. If we'd scored,
I think it was like 7 chances apiece. They just put 5 away, and we only put 1 away.
Which is what happens when you've got 2 of the best strikers in Europe up front. and we had, I think, Jason Lee up front on that night. So, Tom, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, about the buying side. 9 of those were players who started that night when we got tonked 1 year in '96 that summer. So they were, and Jurgen Klinsmann at that time, I know he had a season in North London for Tottenham the season before, but he was a world-class operator. He had Oliver Kahn, Lothar Matthäus, and Jean-Pierre Papin, who was pretty decent at Marseille, wasn't he? So they had some top-class performers during that time.
Yeah, and Maradona, I mean, like, I think it's worth pointing out that although it was the UEFA Cup, actually some of the best sides in Europe were playing, and we played them that season, wasn't it? Like, so Auxerre were the best team in France, Bayern Munich were the best team in Germany, and it was quite a ride, wasn't it?
I remember going to school the next day and talking to one of the teachers and saying, "Oh, I thought we could have won it," and he just looked at me in a quizzical way. But at half time, we could have been ahead in that game and gone on and won it. But it's just the high quality of the Bayern team just paid off in the end for them. But yeah. Either way, whichever competition we're in this season, it's going to be fun. We've got to remember that we can't, even if our league form suffers a bit, I think we've all got to keep a level of perspective on it. I know that the man at the top of the club wants to go forward and forward and forward, but us as fans, having seen the hard times, having been down in the 3 seasons in League One, we've got to remember where we come from and just enjoy this season for what it is and not get too het up. Not criticise Nuno when the inevitable loss of form comes, when we're losing a few games in the bleak midwinter. Not get on the back of the players. Just enjoy it and fully support them this season.
The other thing I will say about that Bayern Munich match, and it's difficult not to overstate this because obviously this is something that happened 30 years ago, but the main thing I remember about that, obviously the results, obviously the fact that it was a really incredible occasion, but also until we got promoted back to the Premier League, that was singularly the most incredible atmosphere I'd ever experienced at the City. It almost literally felt like there was electricity crackling in the air, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, under the lights as well, and walking over Trent Bridge beforehand and everything. It was just, and yeah, the noise was incredible. And I do remember right at the end, after the final whistle blew, the Bayern fans started chanting Nottingham.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I think that was probably to take the piss, but actually it felt quite nice.
Yeah, Germans renowned that sense of humour. Okay, with that, let's move on. And let's go to a feature that we have had before called One Hot Minute.
1865.
Terrorists.
In this game, each contestant is given the name of one of our new signings, and they will have up to a minute to pitch what they think that they can provide for the Reds this term. Now, Baz, you're going to be going first in this particular round, and for the purposes of this game, you have got a minute to talk about the new defender, the very tall Jair Cunha, starting now.
Well, unsurprisingly, I didn't know much about him before he signed for us, so I went on a little YouTube excursion, and if he can do anything close to what his like sizzle reels say, then we're in for an absolute treat. He's kind of like Murillo but tall. It's like and better, because he's all about the little tricks. He's got the pace. He does the covering last ditch tackles. but he also he's got the little tricks. He can bring the ball forward. He can play the pass. He can do all those sort of things. There's just one. If he can do even a third of what I saw on these videos, then we're absolutely in for a treat. The only downside is maybe he's being purchased as Murillo's long-term replacement.
Wow. And ending on a bombshell. Okay. And on the topic of that idea of signing people on the basis of YouTube Reels, I don't want to rain on your parade there, Baz, but I'm just going to point out the player who I think of when I think about signing someone on the basis of YouTube is, in the Fawaz days, signing American striker Robbie Findlay, and we know how that turned out.
Well, I don't believe we signed him off YouTube. It's just that was my research. I'd like to think that maybe we do have a data department.
Fair enough. Okay. So anyone got anything else that they want to add on Jair Cunha? I mean, Maradona, you and I talked about him very briefly, and we said something similar, didn't we? Which is like, he looks like he's got the attributes of Murillo, but is incredibly tall, and hopefully will have that ability to dominate a little bit in the air that took Murillo a good season to manage.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it when it became clear that he was linked for us. So I watched a bit of the Club World Cup, and he, up against good opposition, a good standard of opposition, he performed very well. He's had a fairly meteoric rise in terms of getting this move, a bit like Murillo. He's progressed very quickly over the last couple of years and represented Brazil at several underage groups, under 17s, under 19s, under 21s, I think, and he's performed well. So that's why we've maybe managed to steal a march and get him for a reasonable fee at this time, because he's only really come to prominence quite recently. But yeah, he's a versatile player. I think we've seen him play at right back during the pre-season games as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play in the Premier League.
Yeah, Tom, I was just going to come on to that, which is that we don't want to see him playing at right back in the Premier League, though, do we?
No, as a former manager said, we want to round pegs in round holes, don't we? Yeah, we need fullbacks, don't we? But I know they've tried to put him in the fullback positions because of obviously Nico Williams just coming back from his injury. Olaina is he's missed a couple, hasn't he, during pre-season? So yeah, we definitely need. We need the players to play in the position what they're geared up to play in, rather than trying to shoehorn them into our side. So yeah, hopefully, I think Nuno will play for it at the back in majority of games this season. I think Nikola Milenkovic and Murillo's partnership, that's solid, that is, and then to probably play Jair Cunha next to them. So then with the fullbacks to obviously join in with our attacking play, but yeah,
well, we're going to come back to that in just a little while. But staying with you, Tom, it's time for your hot minute, and you have got Igor Jesus. Your time starts now.
I'm really looking forward to seeing Igor Jesus play. I think it's something mystical about an attacking player from Brazil. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as like Romario or Neymar or the original Ronaldo, but somebody who's in that attacking position, number 9 position, whether he links up the play or he's going to score more goals than he has done previously in his career. But yeah, I can't wait to see him play. He had a really, really good Club World Cup, scored a really good goal against PSG, who basically wiped the floor in Europe, didn't they, this last season? And yeah, I cannot wait to see him play, and hopefully he'll bang a couple of goals in for us in Europe and in our domestic campaign this season.
And just while we've got a little bit of time on that, again, the other thing to point out is he's played almost as a sort of a second striker, as a 10, hasn't he, in pre-season?
He has, and I haven't seen many games this season, this pre-season, but I've actually enjoyed the clips I have seen him, so hopefully he will keep improving and he'll be a really good player for us.
Oh, and the timer almost kept starting. And you know what? It's because the timer was starting because I've been waiting for this moment, Maradona in the Midlands. So is Jesus going to be the saviour, or is it true that he's scared of crosses?
No, stop it, please. Come on. That's my department.
Yeah, you're just jealous.
But no, I think he'll be. I mean, there's a good indicator. I think he'll do well. Tim Vickery, the South American football correspondent, who you hear on the radio and on popping up on TV now and again, and he's been very, very high in his praise of Igor Jesus. He's called him a one-man forward line, compared him to Didier Drogba. He can do everything: hold up the ball, score goals, run into channels, link up play. So he's normally a fairly good character judge of character and players. When he's mentioned the other players that have come over, he wasn't sure about I've forgotten his name now. Who was the number 10 who came? The yo-yo player, the yo-yo. Not the Rubik's
Scarpa.
Scarpa, that's it. And he said,
"What an impression Gustavo made on you."
He said he's a bit old to be coming over. There's probably a reason for that, and I'm not sure if he's going to do that well in English football. And he's right. Danilo, he said, he's going to do quite well, and he did do quite well. And Murillo, he said, to be honest with you, I've hardly seen him play, so I don't know. But he has a lot of excitement, he said at the time. And he's turned out to be a good signing as well. So I trust Tim Vickery and his judgment. And as Tom said, the thought of having a current Brazilian international striker playing up from Forest, if you told us that when we were kids, it would have been absolute fantasy. We would have, our school friends would have taken the mick out of us when we had big Bob Rosario playing up front for us, or Jason Lee. If you said,
although we did,
Bannister,
of course, sign the first Italian to play in the Premier League with Andrea Salenzi.
Yeah. So to have somebody who's very recently played for Brazil, it's an exciting thought. It's a really exciting thought, and it's a bit surreal, to be honest with you.
Okay, Baz, you also wanted to jump in?
I just wanted to, because I've not really watched any of the pre-season games either. I'm kind of intrigued as to how we're going to line up. Like Tom's already mentioned, maybe we're going to go with a back three because we know Nuno likes that. But I mean, I'd have thought if Morgan had gone, then a back three would have made sense, and then Jesus coming in deep and playing that sort of more number 10 kind of role would have made sense. But I'm kind of intrigued to see how we're going to line up now, because we've got Morgan, we've got Jesus. They're probably going to end up in a lot of the same spaces. We've got Ndoye, who does like playing wide, but also likes cutting in. We've obviously got Callum, who likes cutting in. That little space behind Chris Wood, if it's Chris Wood that's starting, is going to get very crowded. So I'm quite intrigued to see how we end up.
Yeah,
I think Gibbs White will play in centre midfield next to Elliot Anderson. I think that'd be, those two positions are absolutely nailed on. And I mean, Senghor has played well in pre-season, but then Igor Jesus will play in the 10 role. That's how I think we'll line up.
I'm just going to point out that you guys have obviously not paid much attention to the script, because we are going to be talking about this in just after the break. So, but yeah, I mean, certainly it's interesting to see that, and Maradona and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago, that with Jesus, we've got a striker who can play alongside another striker, which, Wood and Awoniyi haven't managed to do that in 2.5 seasons of being at the club together. And let's move on with our final hot minute. And Maradona, it's back to you. And we're going to give you a minute to talk about Dan Ndoye, starting now.
Well, the short answer is he's a replacement for Anthony Elanga. The slightly longer answer is he's maybe a slightly different player. His stats haven't been absolutely scintillating throughout his career, but last season was his best one by some margin, 8 goals and 4 assists. So he's not prolific in that department, but he does have that speed that Elanga had, and from what I've read, he's great at ball carrying, which I think in the old days we used to call dribbling. He's one of those players who apparently is faster with the ball at his feet, without the ball at his feet. One of the frustrating things I found with Anthony Elanga was he was great on the break, but when we were especially towards the end of last season, when we were camped on the box against other teams, he showed a reluctance to run at players directly into the box and make them commit challenges. And I believe that Ndoye is more of that sort of player. I think we've got him on an upward trajectory. Also, he's a big lad, 6 foot, and will help out with defensive duties, apparently. He works very hard. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play.
Thank you very much, Maradona. That was pretty much bang on the money for the minute. I'm just going to finish off by saying that Danandoy celebrates. Like, if go onto YouTube and have a look at a video of a red panda being scared by a rock, and that's how Danandoy celebrates. So that's some homework for you to do. And you can maybe do that when we take a little break in just a second. I'm just going to say well done to all of our panelists, and still to come, we'll talk Marinakis versus the world. We've got another game, and our winning contestant will get to play their Tricky Tree tracks of their tears. Before we do that, I'm just going to award some points. So for round 1 of the Wheel of Misfortune, I'm going to give points to the Maradona of the Midlands for that. And for 1 Hot Minute, I'm going to give points to Baz. So there you go. So anyway, we'll be back in just a second, but first it's time for this.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby! Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
1865.
Welcome back to 1865 with me, Rich Ferraro. And before we turn to our panelists, Tom, Baz, and Maradona, I want to revisit a conversation that I had a couple of weeks ago with Maradona. And it's on the subject of somebody who we are all very familiar with. The greatest manager this club will ever have. He was absolutely despised by everyone in authority for most of his managerial career, not just at Forest, but in the jobs he had prior to Forest. Brian Clough was not liked by a lot of people in football. Marinakis is not liked by a lot of fans, and I should imagine he's certainly not going to be on Daniel Levy's Christmas card list.
No, I mean, to use a
or Steve
modern
Parish.
phrase, he's to use a modern phrase, he's a disruptor. So obviously the big six clubs aren't going to like him because he's trying to claw away some of their revenue. And clubs, I mean, if he ruffles up the feathers of people like Steve Parish and Crystal Palace, they're not going to like him. He ruffles up the feathers of Tottenham Hotspur fans, they're not going to like him. But it's tough. He's doing it for Forest. And we if anything, as more they hate him, the more we love him because he's doing it for us. And I'm glad. I hope more fans hate us.
Okay, so we were talking there, obviously, about the effect of Marinakis, the fact that he's maybe not become very popular amongst fans of other clubs, not become popular with Steve Parish, not popular with Daniel Levy. And, well, as Maradona in the Midlands suggested, there's actually a strong likelihood that fans of other clubs are jealous of us having the big guy, someone like Marinakis at the helm of our club. And of course, we've seen lots of opprobrium on social media, particularly from Palace fans, but especially from Tottenham fans. And Tom, I really want to come to you about this. What are your thoughts on the way in which rival supporters and indeed the media are portraying Evangelos Marinakis as our owner?
Well, he looks like a character from like a Bond film, doesn't he? He's and obviously with the way he puts Forest first before everything else, and all he's doing is protecting the club interest. I mean, whoever you listen to, Tottenham approached Morgan Gibbs-White illegally, and obviously it's got his back up. And with the Palace situation, Marinakis, I've got this saying, is fail to prepare to fail, and he did everything right, because there might be a likelihood that him and Forest and Olympiacos might be playing in the same competition. So he sorted his stuff out well before the deadline. And if Crystal Palace can't read an email from UEFA, well, that's their fault. It's not our fault. Just read your emails. And once they got past Millwall and got to the latter stage of the FA Cup, okay, they might have. The Palace fans saying, "Oh, we haven't won anything for like 180 years or something like that." Well, why don't just get your stuff in order? And the thing is that with it, they haven't. and they've got this mess what they're into now, and we're not to blame for this. All Marinakis is asking UEFA for some clarity. If anything, he's helped other clubs out, saying, "Can you just clarify the multi-club ownership model?" And we'll go from there. And they've got the backup thinking we've obviously stuck her oar in and everything, and then they've had a hissy fit about it, and the blame should lie with Steve Parish and the hierarchy at Crystal Palace. And they keep saying, "Oh, John Textor didn't have any influence and everything." Well, he apparently cleared the debt and paid for their academy. Well, if that's not influence, what is? So, for me, it balls to him, and hopefully, Forest are the victors tomorrow because they didn't do something so simple as reading an email.
Yeah, so just a reminder, we are recording this on Sunday, the 10th of August. By the time you're listening to this, our friends out there in the podosphere, we may well have heard the verdict from the Court of Arbitration for Sport on whether Palace will get to play in the Europa League or the Conference League and what that means for Forest. Baz, I'm going to come to you. And very simply, all the things that Marinakis is taking flack for and all the things that Forest are taking flack for, especially from Palace and Spurs, well, none of it's anything to do with us. If Spurs kept did what they had to do in terms of going about the transfer, they might have got over the line. If Palace, as Tom said, checked their emails and did their admin, then it'd be absolutely fine. It's nothing to do with us.
Yeah, especially I feel really bad for the Palace fans because it's the club's administration's incompetence. I'd read somewhere that the Crystal Palace email address that's registered with UEFA is info@Crystal Palace. So the email address that's going to get all the crap, all the spam, all the tourist requests and all that sort of stuff. So if you're going to register that email address with UEFA, of course you're going to miss the important emails. It's like, that's just incompetence. The whole thing about Marinakis writing the letter, that would be that they're making out that he wrote the letter and that's why UEFA did the investigation. But they announced the investigation before the letter was. I
think we can also establish that if Marinakis wants to intimidate you, he's got other means.
Well, and that's the other thing. So my daughter's boyfriend is a Spurs fan, and he was in the room with me when I found out about Morgan. And so I read it out to him, and he was like, "Why on earth did he do that?" And I went, "Well, you don't say no to Mr. Marinakis." And he just went, "He's got no arsehole."
Whoa!
Which, but you don't say no to Mr. Marinakis.
And I'm just going to also point out, you were recently on holiday in Greece, and you sent me a message saying about how people in Greece respond when you mention the name Evangelos Marinakis.
Yeah. So I did a little survey. I did a little survey.
Small sample size.
6 people in total, because it's kind of a weird thing to ask. But it was exactly 50-50. 50% of people absolutely loved him. And my favourite reaction, I was in a jewellery shop. My friend was buying some jewellery. And the shop girl, she must have been 17, 16 or something. And she mentioned that she'd grown up in Athens. So I went, "Oh, so you must have heard of Mr. Marinakis then." And then the shop owner, who I assume was her dad, suddenly stood up, came charging across the shop and goes, "We do not mention that man in here." I think polarizes opinions would be the best way of putting it. And I think we're going to see more of that over here as well.
And Maradona, as our listeners heard, we've already discussed it a little bit a couple of weeks ago. But I mean, ultimately, the other thing that I want to just ask you about is the media. The media in this country are not used to having an owner who is so determined to disrupt the status quo, to try and give it back to the big 6.
Yeah, I mean, probably the best, well, he's not even the owner, but the best known administrator in football is probably Daniel Levy. And he's probably got the highest profile, probably unwanted, apart from Marinakis. So mostly these days they're sort of Arab sheikhs or American businessmen, and you don't really have sort of faceless people that you don't really know. So to have somebody like Marinakis who's sort of drawing attention to himself, and doing it really for glory, not money. I think that's the big difference between him and all the other owners in the league. He just wants it for not corporate whitewashing, not whitewashing of a nation's public profile. He just wants to win football matches and win trophies. And so we're going to get some bad things with that, where he's going to embarrass us sometimes by storming onto the pitch and make the odd sort of Twitter message where we think, well, it's probably not the right thing to do. Just sort of calm it down. He's like a fan. He's basically a fan in the boardroom. But I think
who happens to be a billionaire.
Yeah, but I think weighing the good against the bad. I think he's good. I think we all like the soap opera football. We all like listening to radio shows where they talk about this sort of thing. It fills up our boring, mundane lives. And I think we'll probably win more matches than lose because of him. So I think that's a good thing. We're just going to have to live with the bad and take the rough with the smooth and hopefully end up as champions of the world as possible nowadays by the end of the journey.
And Tom, before I come to you, Baz, I'd also say that next time you speak to daughter's boyfriend, I bet he would and his family, if you were to ask them, would you rather have an owner like Marinakis or an owner or a chairman like Daniel Levy? I bet actually, if they're to think about it, there's only one answer, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, as you say, he's a fan. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing about banning green at the training ground as well. It's like, yeah, if I owned a football club in another country, I'd ban white and black.
Okie doke. Tom, yeah.
Yeah, the laughable thing this week on the overlap on what Greg Mitchell does is absolutely piled in on him. And the antagonist, which is Rory Jennings, turned around and says, oh, why don't Forest do the ethical thing and just hand the Europa League place to Crystal Palace? And this is coming from a Chelsea fan with all that Russian money, what was bankrolling in their
ethical,
club.
Yeah,
so it's excuse my French, bollocks, isn't it?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, certainly, I have to say, I mean, that the whole bit that I've seen on social media, I've not watched the overlap, but I've just seen that little discussion on social media. I don't think anyone really came across well in that. This is not a slight on Greg or on Dan, the Palace fan. But yeah, to be honest, I think both of them ended up falling prey to the idea of pitching Forest against Palace. And as I've said earlier, I just don't think that's what it's about. It's all to do with a lack of competence rather than any malice.
And it's quite interesting in a couple of weeks. Who do we play first away game? Crystal Palace.
Yeah. And if I remember rightly, isn't that sandwiched by the Conference League playoffs?
Yeah.
Okie doke. So it might be a bit tasty, but the thing is that I personally, my plea to you, Forest fans, and any Palace fans who happen to be listening, don't buy the media narrative. Don't buy all of this. It's not about Forest versus Palace. This is about actually the fact that as Palace fans, you've been let down, and as Forest fans, it would be an absolute travesty if incompetence on the part of your club leads to both teams having their fortune decided in that way. Now, what I want to do is to have a little think and a chance for our panelists to gain some more points as we look at our polls. And we're just going to run through some of the questions that we put out to you on our social media. So the first question that I put out to you, and before we hear what you, the listeners, thought, I asked who's been the Forest signing of the season, signing of the summer so far, beg your pardon, and I've given you the choices of the three that we heard of, so Jesus, Ndoye, Cunha, and also adding in there Gibbs-White, who we signed on a free transfer from Tottenham. So I'm going to come to you first, Tom.
I'm looking forward to, like I mentioned earlier in the game regarding Igor Jesus and actually Ndoye, for example. I think they're two really exciting players, and they just fit into what we need in terms of pace, and obviously with Jesus, Igor Jesus linked up the play. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing them too, and hopefully they will settle in really quickly and keep us in the top half of the table.
Okie doke. Maradona?
I was going to say Jesus as well, just from what I mentioned earlier, having a Brazilian centre forward up front for us. It's going to be exciting to see a Brazilian on the pitch.
Okie doke. Well, we've already got Brazilians on the pitch. Seeing more. Yeah. See if you can tear strips off the opposition. And Baz.
I think as a statement of intent, Morgan Gibbs-White is probably the signing. But as someone who loves a defender, I am really looking forward to Jay Cunha. I think if he can, as I said before, if he can come anywhere near to his sizzle reels, then we're in for a treat.
Okay. The listeners, you went for 8.6% went for Jesus. Only 1.8% went for Cunha. 42% went for Ndoye, and 48% went for Morgan Gibbs-White as Forest signing of the summer. Let's move on. Are you concerned about Forest's pre-season? Yes or no? Maradona?
No, apart from maybe last night against the Saudi team. It would have been nice to have got at least one goal during pre-season. I don't think this has ever happened in the history of pre-season ever before. The team's gone throughout the whole of pre-season without scoring a goal. So
we scored against Fulham, didn't we?
Did we? I can't remember now. Okay,
all right, that's
Tom, all right.
Tom, fill me in on that. It was 3-1, wasn't it?
Yeah, Wood scored.
Oh,
yeah, well, there you go.
I've forgotten about that already. So, well, then I'm not worried at all. Then it's fine. Yeah, no, I'm not concerned.
Okay, it's all fine. Okay, Tom, is it all fine?
Yeah, I think pre-season is what it is. It's like you try new things, try new systems. It's clear that Nuno's trying to be adaptive. I think last season we was like towards the back end of the season we got found out, didn't we? Like against Chelsea, for example, when they lost the ball, they got 11 men behind the ball as quickly as possible to nullify us. So I'm not concerned regarding the lack of goals at the moment. I think it will come, but if you're asking me the same question, say back end of September, that we haven't scored enough goals, etc., then I will be concerned. But the clips what I've seen, David De Gea the other night for Fiorentina, Castells in goal for last night for Calcier, they've made some really good saves, and on another day those goals go in. So I'm not concerned just yet, but it wouldn't be Forest if there's not a Twitter meltdown.
Well, this is true. So, Baz, are you concerned about Forest pre-season?
I'm not concerned about the results. I am slightly concerned about the lack of goals, but not as Tom said. Yeah, from the stuff I've read and seen, we were making chances, and that's good. My concern comes from I just worry that maybe Chris Wood last season was playing above himself. Obviously, it's his best season pretty much ever. So hopefully it's not a one-off, and actually that clinical finishing isn't going to desert him when we need it.
Okay, well, I'm just going to add in a couple of little things there. My concern is actually to do with how thin the squad is, and I know there'll be other players signed before the window shuts, but that's my main concern, particularly when we had a match where we had Cunha and Morata as makeshift fullbacks. And then the other thing I will add in there is I just heard on the BBC Nottingham podcast an interview with Yatesy where he was talking about actually he genuinely sounded positive about the trip to Portugal and everything. So he sounded he didn't sound concerned, and I know he's going to say that, isn't he? But also he's a heart on sleeve kind of guy. So he doesn't sound concerned, and apparently neither are you listeners, because 73% of you said you're not concerned about Forest pre-season. How many of you voted before the match against Al Qadsiya? I'm not quite sure. Next one. Which do you think will be Forest's first choice formation for the forthcoming season? So I've given you the options of 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2 diamond, 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. Baz, you and I over the years have had many a conversation about our preferred formations. What would you go for?
I could see us actually playing a 4-4-2 diamond a lot. Although I know Nuno likes a back three, but yeah, I could see the players we have, it seems to fit in with that, especially if we do get some fullbacks, because that's where the width would have to come from. But
Okay.
It would almost be like the dropping back to the Paul Hart sort of style with Huckabee and good old Marlon Harewood.
Yeah, so maybe thinking about Ndoye potentially playing as a second striker and like in a way that Elanga did a little bit last season? Okay, all right. What do you think, Tom? You sent it back three, but do you think it's going to be 4 or 5 in the middle?
I think it depends on who we play, really. I think away from home, probably pack the midfield against the likes of Liverpool, Man City, for example. But I just think Nuno will be very adaptive in terms of the Saturday, Thursday, Sunday scheduling, and it all depends what players we get from now until the end of the window. If he gets the players what he wants and gives us depth and gives us more options off the bench and everything, I think we're going to be more adaptable rather than just like sticking to one formation all the way through the season like it did last year. Apart from a couple of games, I know we played 3 at the back, didn't we? Where Everton just after Christmas, but I think it all depends on personnel who we get through the door and everything. And if you look at the rumours, Jota might be going back to Portugal, etc. So, but probably need another winger and a few more. Players to give us more depth and
add out the squad.
Yeah, I do think we need another striker, to be honest, because Igor Jesus, I think he's going to be more of a link-up player. If you look at his numbers, he's not a prolific scorer. You got Chris Wood, who Baz has just said is the season of his life last year. Taiwo, we don't know, do we? We generally don't know what we're going to get out of Taiwo. So I think we still need another striker, to be honest, so we'll make sure that we've got an up there in that position.
Thank you, Doug. And Maradona, formation-wise, what do you think?
Probably 4-2-3-1 is pretty much a default for most teams. It's worked well for us, so I don't think he'll tinker with it too much. Maybe if we've got injury problems or something, he'll switch to a back three with the 2 full-backs bumming on. But I think for most of the season, he'll stick with the tried and tested 4-2-3-1.
Just very quickly on the topic of maybe a back three, there's some suggestion that Forest might be interested in Leif Davis. I wouldn't be confident about him playing as a full-back in a back four, but if we play a back three and him playing as a wing-back, maybe. If we're being optimistic as well, I'm also going to throw in there that Nico Williams wasn't the best defender until the last season or so. So maybe Davis has got the capability of developing in that way if the price is right. And of course we've got Eric da Silva Moreira as well, so some possibilities there. And listeners, you went for 58% going 4-2-3-1 with 20% going for 4-4-2 diamond, 14% 3-5-2, and just 8% thinking it might be a 3-4-3. I'm going to combine the next 2 questions, which are the Forest home kit, do you love it or hate it? And the away kit, four or bleu? So, Maradona, I know that kits tend to pass you by a little bit. So I'm just going to come to you very briefly on this one.
I'm not really bothered about either of them. I don't hate them. So I guess it's love it and four by default.
Love it and four. That's the clip. Okay. Tom, quickly.
Both gorgeous kits, the best kits we probably had in 20 odd years, probably longer than that actually, probably since the mid-90s. I love the pinstripe with the shield, and it's nice that we've got something a bit more down the bespoke road rather than just having a template. And the away kit, it's just lovely, and the detail, which is a nod towards the historic lace industry in Nottingham, and the NG postcode, which somebody said on a Facebook page the other day, what does the NG stand for? So no, I think they're both gorgeous, and I have heard a rumor that the third kit might be based on the Labatt's 93 to 95 kit. So yeah, both gorgeous.
If it's blue and green, it's definitely not going to be that. Mr. Marinakis would never allow that. Baz, I don't know about you. I mean, I do like the new home shirt. I'm not sold on the away shirt, but the home shirt, I like it. But unfortunately, I also have terrible flashbacks to getting relegated.
Yes, I was going to say exactly the same. I think they're both absolutely gorgeous. They're both as good as anything we've had. But yeah, pinstripes just makes me think of that season.
Yeah, okie doke. And I mean, if we'd also sold our number 10 at the start of this season and then one pinstripes, then it would have been too much. So generally, people Generally agreed. So 91% love the home kit and 85% said thwart the away kit. Just quickly on the last few questions, which position is most important for Forest to strengthen? I gave you the options of striker, midfield, winger or fullback. Tom, in a word?
Striker, just take the workload off Chris Wood.
You've had your word. Okay. Baz?
Fullback.
And Maradona?
Winger.
Okay, so we had 11.5% going for midfielder, 21.5% going for striker, 28.5% going for winger, and 38.5% agreeing with me at fullback. Obviously, we've discussed it a little bit already. Which European competition will Forest be playing in this season? In a word, Europa or conference? Tom?
Europa.
Baz?
Conference, because of the Court of Administration for Sport on our record.
Oh, that's more than the word, though. And Maradona?
I don't want to tempt fate, so I'll say conference.
Okay. And 64% went for Europa League and therefore 36% for Conference League. And last but not least, what position will Forest achieve in the Premier League this season? So we'd already heard your answers and we have no one on our polls going for relegation. We had 4.4% going for the European places. The majority, 64%, going for 7th to 10th, and 32% agreeing with Maradona's definition of 11th to 17th. So it's time to announce our winners of Football Terrorists today, our highly scientific point scoring system. And today's winner is the Maradona of the Midlands. Wow. So you get to choose Tricky Tree Tracks of Your Tears, a song that reminds you of a big moment for Forest, whether good or bad. And I will let you ruminate on that, and we will make sure that's added into the podcast to close today's show. Thank you very much to Tom, to Baz, and to Maradona. This is simply part one of our pre-season preview. As I mentioned, Tom has had a chat with Greg from Talking Reds and Reese from Red Side of the Trent, and that will be in your feeds in the next few days. And then before we get to the weekend, I'm also going to be having a chat with our friend of the podcast, City Ground Stadium announcer and all-round legend, Mark Dennison, as we look forward to the season that's coming. So do stay tuned to 1865. Thank you very much for listening, and in the meantime, come on you Reds.
You've been listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Follow us on X, Insta, TikTok, Threads and Blue Sky, and listen via Apple, Spotify and YouTube. All the links are available at 1865.football.
Terrorists.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
You'll get more than you expect with McValue at McDonald's. Like deals on your late night go-tos when the party goes till dawn. And savings on their faves. So date night always passes the vibe check. Plus, when the fam shows up for the weekend, you can show out for breakfast.
Buy one breakfast sandwich, add one for $1. Only in the app. Limited time only at participating McDonald's. Valid once a day. Must opt into rewards. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.